It was the second single and hit from one of the biggest blockbuster albums of 1982. It's one of those songs that when you hear it, it just brings a huge smile to your face, and you're just thinking, I remember this song. It's so good. The founding member and composer tells us the story of one of the best hidden gems of 1982, this rock classic. It's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember cruising in your car a little longer so that you could listen and sing along to that great song that just came on the radio, you're really going to dig this channel. We've all done it. That's what great music does to us. Just subscribe below to get the stories from the artists, stories from the legends. We also have a Patreon. You're going to want to see our catalog of content there. You can become an honorary producer that helps us curate more history, music history, of course, and our merch as well at professorofrock.com. So it's time for another edition of our series, Revelations. This is where artists and writers take us through a deep dive into their most spectacular songs and albums. And on this edition of Revelations, we're going to go behind a song from 1982. It's one that I've taken for granted many times. It's one that once I name it and I play a clip on it, you're going to likely feel the same way.
I never meant to be so bad to you.
Hidden gem that we should be playing more in our daily life. Only Time Will Tell by the rock supergroup Asia, written by keyboardist composer Geoff Downes and vocalist bassist the late John Wetton for Asia's self-titled debut. Great record. Of course, spent 9 weeks at number one on the Billboard album charts in 82. The first single from the album, Heat of the Moment, which we've covered before, that went to the top 5.
'Cause it's the heat of the moment.
And then Only Time Will Tell, this one kept the album's momentum going. It went to number 17. Of course, Asia consisted of lead vocalist, bassist John Wetton of King Crimson. There was guitarist Steve Howe of Yes. The aforementioned Geoff Downes, who also spent time in Yes, as well as the Buggles with Trevor Horn. And Carl Palmer on drums of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So up next, Geoff Downes, a great interview. He tells us the story behind this 80s classic and about Asia's creative period during that debut album. Now, as we go into this interview, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, that helped to make this possible. At Zenni.com, you can customize your eyewear with a prescription lens or non-prescription lens if you want a distinctive look or standout color that will match what you're wearing or a particular style lens. You should check it out today and add some of the great features like blue blocks. Here's Geoff with the interview. When you can write a song, and you've written a few of them, that can actually place you in that moment in the decade, the Buggles, Video Killed the Radio Star. Heat of the Moment.
'Cause it's the heat of the moment.
Only Time Will Tell. These are songs that huge.
Don't cry.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's talk about Only Time Will Tell. Great song. Starts with that captivating Jeffrey Downes synth riff that weaves in and out of the song's arrangement. I got to point out that I do think that Europe, the Final Countdown, I think that they were inspired by that for sure.
Yeah, I think they. I mean, it's not close enough to steal it, but I think the principle of it, of having a kind of horn line, synthesized horn line going through a song as an introductory motif, probably did inspire them to some degree. Yeah, that's a great song too.
What inspired that riff? I've always been curious.
It was based on an idea that I had for commercial. It actually is really the chorus part. You know, that's the same harmonic structure. You know, sure as the sun will touch the sky, etc. The idea was really something that I wanted to get a line that wove around those chords. And I think that when we started rehearsing that song, I started to play that line over the chorus part, which was not really established. And so that's why we decided to open with it and put it at the front.
What point did you incorporate it? Tell me kind of about the genesis of that song coming together as you were recording with Asia.
Well, John had the first part, you know, you're leaving now, that he had that.
You're leaving now.
And then I had the other section, whichever you want to think is a chorus. I mean, The Only Time Will Tell kind of, it's an odd song in some respects because it doesn't actually have, the chorus is not Only Time Will Tell. It's a sort of line within a verse part. And the chorus is the big now, sure as the sun will touch the sky.
Now, sure as the sun will cross the sky.
That is really the chorus in my view, and that's the part that I contributed towards John. And so we literally put those two ideas together, and then we had this idea of having The Only Time Will Tell over the verse part.
I see it now.
It's quite a progressive piece in a short, you know, 4.5 minute thing, because it's got the breakdown section in the middle. You know, where it kind of goes off piste a little bit. It's got breakdown sections in it, so it's quite an unusual piece. But I think that for a lot of the time, the horn part or the intro that I came up with runs, you know, is used by sports events because it's got that kind of anthemic, something's going to happen vibe to it, you know. You know, that's one of the reasons why it gets requested. And you know, I always get brings a smile to my face when I hear it on the radio or whatever, because I think, wow, you know, that's another one of my intros there.
Very iconic, and I know that as I read about it, the idea for the song came from true life experience that John was sharing. Another one of those. Do you remember? Did he tell you about what inspired that lyrically?
No, he never really. To be honest, he never really explained too much about his lyrics. They're very, I would say, private, but he liked to leave people guessing about stuff, even me. You know, it was very much a case of, you know, I just went with his ideas because I knew that, you know, when he was going to sing them, he was singing them with such conviction and such passion.
Like the tears that used to die.
And that's something that, you know, it's very difficult for, I think, some artists to put over, if they've not actually written and experienced the content of a song. It's quite difficult for them to generate enough passion and you know, intensity into it. And I know people do great versions of Beatles songs and great versions of the other, but I don't think there's anything quite like committing yourself just to an idea that you've had yourself and delivering it in such a passionate and controlled way. And John was so good at doing that.
It's in your eyes.
He was really special in that department.
Very underrated vocalist from that time, of course. And in that song, there's some great lines in there. That third verse where it says, "The brightest ring around the moon
Brightest ring around the moon.
will darken when I die."
Darken when I
And then the last lyrics of the outro before the chorus fade out, you're claiming victory, you were just using me, and there's no one you can use now. Just incredible.
Yeah. Now people can relate to that. Funny enough, on that original verse, your insincerity. It was actually originally insecurity. I think it was Kalogna. He caused such a stir because he said, the kids don't want to hear about insecurity. Change it to something else. So John said, all right, insincerity, there you go. So that stuck in the song. But yeah, it's a funny story, but it's a true story. We didn't give him any songwriting credit for it, put it that way.
Only time will tell. It climbed to number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it was number 8 on the rock chart and number 7 in Canada. But pop culture-wise, like you said, it's been used a lot. Video games, especially in the last 10 years, have become such a place for rock music, those old rock songs. And Metal Gear Solid 5, it was used in that. It was used in Family Guy. Really, every song on that Asia debut album is stellar. This is one of those albums where you can play the whole thing. There's not one mediocre track. Soul Survivor. That track was heavily played at Album Rock Radio. Always thought that song should have been a huge crossover hit. I mean, the chorus, so catchy, so anthemic. A co-write between you and John.
Well, that was actually put together once we'd been rehearsing for a couple of months and we were kicking ideas around. It was during Wimbledon week, actually, and Bjorn Borg was playing John McEnroe. And so we had this on the TV whilst we were working away. We saw the fire in John McEnroe's eyes.
See the fire, I will defend.
And the will to win. And I think that was the inspiration for the song, the Soul Survivor.
Solitary fire.
Solitary fire, because a tennis player is really on his own. There's no, certainly men's singles, there's no, there's no one you can really turn to when you're out there on that court. So you've got to be, you've got to survive or not, as the case may be. And so that was a basic. I think it helped steer us along on that kind of path, and the fact that McEnroe was a very aggressive player.
Another just memorable keyboard section in that bridge for Soul Survivor that really just adds to the heroic spirit, kind of what you're talking about of the track.
I think we used to call it the Cuckoos, because it was a couple of, it's a sample of a panpipe that I had for the Fairlight, and the boo boo boo, that bit. I sort of felt that it was nice to bring it all down because it was so intense up until that point. And so we brought it right down, so it just had this very kind of, we used to call it, the cuckoo second. It had this very kind of ethereal part, and then we started to develop it and build it back up again until it, it came storming in again. With a lead synth line bringing it down back into the final verse. So it was very much a case of, making that whole thing as exciting as possible.
Just keep on burning.
Well, Wildest Dreams, that is the standout track to me, in my opinion, on the debut album to showcase that superstar musicianship of Asia.
Wildest dreams. Wildest dreams.
And if somebody said, play me a song that demonstrates why Asia was so great, I'd play Wildest Dreams. Symphonic rock battle cry. It's like a a documentary drama full of like riveting storytelling.
Well, I had the basic idea of that song, and I took the main idea for the lyrics. I didn't really contribute to many lyrics, but that was what I did. And on that first album, and I think that I took these lyrics to John, and I had the whole of that verse section, and he said, "That's really, really good." And he liked the idea of the fact that, you know, it was a bit futuristic in some respects, in the fact that, you know, generals were watching a war progress on screens, and they were sitting in the back room, and the soldiers were going out to fight. It was you know, quite a poignant concept, really. And I think that, you know, when John added and said, well, you know, the brandy put them way behind the times.
The brandy puts them way behind the times.
And then we had the same thing about them watching the war on video screens, and of course the VJ's line was in there, which, you know, which really appealed to the people at MTV, because I think it was the first time a VJ had been used in a lyric. Lyrically, it's kind of very edgy, and of course it's got the beautiful soft sections that come in. The concept of you know, never in my wildest dreams. It was another kind of catchphrase as well, because people use that term all the time. You know, if you had a catchphrase or an idea like that, you could build a song out of that. And that's what we did with Wildest Dreams. And I think that when it came to that end section with the stabs, you know, Carl's manic drum break at the end there, you know, the powerful, those stabs were very kind of orchestral. They were very military almost, you know. So we had that, you know, you had that military stab section opening up the song. I think that was one of the ones we really worked hard at on the arrangement in the rehearsal room, because it's not just a song, you know. I think it's a very powerful arrangement as well.
I mean, I want our viewers to discover it if they haven't already, because Hal's guitar solos are some of his greatest.
Yeah, that's right. There's those spiraling guitar lines, you know, which were, you know, it's not the sort of thing you'd really heard much of before. You know, even in Yes, I don't think he, because these were really kind of tough, angry guitar lines, you know. And I think that Steve was, you know, that's one of the best tracks to showcases Steve on the album.
John, his vocals, but his vigorous bass line is so potent. Your audacious performance on the keyboards. And then Carl Palmer's climaxing drum solo, just unbelievable.
You know, the tolling bell at the very end of the fade. You know, one of those things I remember when we actually recorded the We Fight for King, was that whole thing about trying to convey, you know, a sort of a platoon of soldiers all shouting together, you know. So we got like hundreds of, well, not hundreds of people, but we did hundreds of overdubs of all shouting We Fight and For King. So we could get that effect of the army and the marching and all the rest of it.
One of your magic flourishes that I want to point out is that when you bring in the piano part after John's vocal on They Recommended Euthanasia, and as a call and response to his vocals throughout that section, I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I thought that was of course, final thing, just to keep it orchestral and finish it off with a flourish.
Hey, leave us a comment below about this hidden rock gem of 1982. What are your memories of when Asia released this song and this great debut record? What other hidden gems should we cover on here, the story straight from the artist? Make sure to let us know in the comments and we'll try to do that. Now, if you do like our content, we invite you to be a full-time part of our channel. Make sure to check us out on Patreon. There's even more content there. And check out our merch, including our Vintage Years collection and this one, Choose Music. Help us keep the music alive. That is the goal. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends. Talk to you soon.